Hey girl gang, it's Dr. Joy here and you are watching Delivering Joy MD TV. Welcome to Well Woman Wednesday, and today y'all, we are continuing our series on menopause, and I have a special guest for you who I am so excited about. I mean, I always say I'm excited because I'm excited a lot, but today y'all, I'm uber excited. I got a new word for you. So make sure you keep watching to learn more about how to choose your treatment for perimenopausal or menopausal symptoms. Stay tuned. Okay, girl gang, I'm back and you want to stay tuned for this entire video because I have with me today, wait for it, the menopause mogul, y'all. She is a board certified OBGYN. She has patented the power of the pause, y'all, and I think that's fantastic. She specializes in treating women over 40, and she works with women over 40 not only to help them eliminate their perimenopausal or menopausal symptoms, but also to just kind of figure out how to live their best life. So not only is she a physician, but she's a life coach, and she's a best-selling author of her book, Loving Me, Myself, and Her Through Perimenopause and Beyond. She has a podcast, Midlife-ish, Slay Menopause Through Mindful Living. So I am super excited to welcome Dr. JoyEl Ballard to Delivering Joy MD TV today. Give her a hand clap, girls. I know I can see you clapping out there. So Dr. JoyEl, thank you so much for joining me today. I have been keeping up with your content on LinkedIn and other platforms for a while, and I am just super excited that you were able to join us and talk about choosing treatments at menopause and perimenopause, because you know it's not something that even physicians get a lot of information about. So can you imagine what the woman who does not have a medical background is going through out there?
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Joy. I just want to say, y'all are getting double doses of joy today. Dr. Joy, yes. Dr. JoyEl.
That's the hashtag for the year for my social media platforms. It's more joy.
Love it. But yes, I am super excited. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show, because again, this is definitely a topic that we need to talk about over and over again. And yes, as physicians, we didn't really get a lot of education around perimenopause and menopause. So yeah, I'm super excited about this conversation because we need to talk all about this.
Yes, and it's something that a lot of times I find that women don't necessarily discuss. We were talking about in a previous video that I'll link up here in the cards for ladies that may have missed it, about how 80% of women are experiencing these symptoms when they get to the perimenopausal state or the menopausal state, but only 20% are really talking about it with their healthcare providers. So, you know, it's okay to talk about it. I feel like there's kind of this sense of that the topic is taboo, or that maybe people are ashamed, or, you know, that we're not really mentioning it when we go to our appointments. And that's something that needs to stop, honey. We need to talk about these things.
We need to talk about, I definitely agree with you. Shame, fear, even denial. Like women don't want to admit like menopause. Like, don't even put me in that category. I'm
right.
Like, well, it's okay. It's all right. Like
I still think we 28. You know?
Right.
Right? So I'm like, I'm gonna be 28 forever.
Right.
As a matter of fact, you know, just a quick funny side story. I threw my mom a 50th birthday party one year, and she wasn't even 50 because she had been 28 for so many years that I miscalculated. And I had all her friends, and I had all this whole party, and then she leans over and whispers to me, she's like, I'm not 50 yet, I'm 49. I was like, ah! So
that is hilarious.
She was 28, so I could not keep up.
Right.
So if you are in denial about the fact that you are becoming a woman of a certain age, it is time to leave that behind, because today Dr. JoyEl and I are going to break this down for you. And if you didn't catch my video on hormones and how our hormones work and how they begin to decline, definitely catch up on that so that you can kind of understand that process. But basically, as we age, our estrogen levels begin to decline and we start to experience some symptoms. And we've talked about hot flushes. As a matter of fact, it might be easiest for all of y'all if I just link the whole playlist up here so you can keep up with that discussion. Because today I really want Dr. JoyEl to focus on treatments, because that's where she really shines. So Dr. JoyEl, for women who may be experiencing perimenopausal symptoms, how do you start to have that conversation with them when you start the power of the pause? I love that.
Yes, it is the power of the pause, right? Because we need to take a pause and figure out what is going on with our minds and our bodies during this transition. So I really start with thinking about changing their lifestyle, because that's really my jam. Because I feel like if you can truly figure out what your body needs, what your mind needs, and actually nourish that, you can certainly go through this transition without really taking any prescriptions or supplements. You can actually avoid all that if you can really hone in on what you can do naturally, as far as focusing on your nutrition, focusing on exercise, and focusing on self-care. I think that's the biggest thing for me, especially with my journey. That truly helped me through actually transitioning and being able to respond differently to my symptoms. All that allowed me to actually change my response with my whole transition. And that's what I teach my patients, and then ultimately now my clients as I do coaching, with really focusing on changing a lifestyle. This is a lifestyle change that basically transcends into the rest of the rest of your life, and that really helps with their overall health and their well-being as they go through this journey. This does not have to be some doom and gloom, y'all. Like, this can be the best time of your life if you hone on what you actually need in this point, in this season of your life, as far as physically, mentally, emotionally, just as you as a whole person.
I love that. I really love that, because a lot of times we are so pressed for time in a traditional physician care setting, and we don't have time to really talk about those really deep things. And so we kind of toss out prescriptions, we toss out bits and pieces of advice, but we don't necessarily put the whole puzzle together with the person in front of us. And I love that you're talking about the entire lifestyle change that's occurring. And I think that food a lot of times is medicine. Sleep is medicine.
Yes.
Exercise and movement of your body is medicine. And we don't talk about it a lot. Stress management.
Oh my gosh.
Big medicine. That's
big medicine.
The big medicine that we miss a lot of the time. So, before you necessarily jump into pills and patches and rings and injections and implants and all of those sorts of things, see what you can do with what you're eating, how you're sleeping, how you're managing your stress, how you're moving your body, because those things can really play a big role. And like you said, this could be the best time of your life, right? Yes. Because I don't know about you, but like, I hit 40 and I was like, oh, it's a whole new world. I felt like I was a little mermaid. It's a whole new world, because you know who you are.
Yes.
You know what you want, and you're so much more confident in what you're saying and what you're doing, and now as the period stop and ovulation stops, there's a role for good sexual health,
Yes. Oh yes, honey. That's not exactly, without worrying about what's going to happen after.
Right. So there are some good places. You're usually getting into your career well, hitting your stride, able to do a few more things financially. So, I mean, it's just, this can be the jam if we work it right.
Yes, I totally agree. The best time of our lives.
Yes.
And that's what I really want to empower women, especially Black women, that the menopause transition can be the best time of your life. But, you can reclaim your joy, your power in this season. It does not have to be people like, oh, it's the end. Like, this is the end of my youth. Like, no, this is the beginning, y'all. This is the beginning of your next level.
This is the whole second half of my life, and it's about to be bomb.
Exactly.
Let's jump a little bit deeper, dive a little bit deeper into that whole nutrition piece, because that can be a real challenge for well, let me just say for me. Let me own that. So as I am going through my 40s and getting into this perimenopausal phase, what are some of the high level changes that I need to make in my diet?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think for a lot of women, I typically talk about potential triggers that actually can certainly trigger different menopausal symptoms, especially like hot flashes. So sugar is a big one, right? I know sugar is the devil, y'all. I know. I love sugar, right? Like, and I get that. A lot of us do. And I have to say that I'm not the one to say we have to totally eliminate it. But to really be mindful of how much intake you're taking, because when you are more intentional about how much you're taking, that certainly can, make a difference as far as your symptoms. So sugar is definitely a big one. And I also encourage women to, eat more plant-based, like be plant-powered as far as you're eating. And I'm not trying to make anybody a vegan, vegetarian, because I am not one. I like chicken. Okay. So I like you.
We're gonna have fun today.
I like chicken. So I am not vegan, vegetarian, none of that. I just eat more plants because I know plants actually fuel our gut health, which actually also helps with balancing our hormones. So certainly just eating more plants for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, like all your meals and in between, that certainly can also help you kind of, navigate through these menopausal symptoms that they may be occurring or about to occur or whatever. That helps you actually, tolerate them better.
Excellent. I think that's true. You mentioned gut health. Do you recommend like probiotics, prebiotics?
Yeah, definitely. Multivitamin, the probiotic, prebiotic, all that stuff. And then, they have different foods that, like sauerkraut and that type of stuff that serve as probiotics also, but definitely certainly fueling that good bacteria in our gut that helps balance it and metabolizes all the things that we're eating so that our hormones can also be in a better balance. So I definitely recommend that too.
And then, in terms of moving our bodies, as we age, we can't do all the things we used to do. Like, I don't have Megan Thee Stallion's knees anymore. So, what kind of fitness life are you recommending for us ladies over 40?
Yeah. So, I don't really have Megan Thee Stallion knees either. And I'm okay with that, right? Like we can modify. Certainly the baseline, exercise recommendation is 30 minutes 30 minutes a day for 4 or 5 days a week, right? And I'm definitely, I'm afraid to say that I love exercise, but it actually makes me feel more empowered when I exercise. And I, say that, do some cardio, definitely do some light weights to help also, protect your muscles, because we do lose lean muscle mass as we're aging too. But, I always say, do something that you like to do. Like, I don't like running. I don't like running on the treadmill.
Look, the Bible says only the wicked flee when nothing is chasing them. I don't run. I like to do, one thing that I have discovered is line dancing that I enjoy, and I can work with sweat because I'm going to keep on doing it until I catch on to the moves,
Exactly.
And
right.
Keep moving, and I enjoy it. And then if I have friends or family together, I like to teach it to them, and we can do it together.
Right.
I try to even have my office staff. They're laughing at me. They're like, "Come on, y'all, listen." So dancing, if you enjoy dancing,
awesome. Yes,
that we as Black women often tend to enjoy. Everybody knows how to do the electric slide, cha-cha,
right?
So So doing
All of that.
learning new ones, and they're all over YouTube and they're free, and you can get in your living room and do those. So moving your
Exactly.
body also is a great segue into stress reduction, because
Mm,
we know that stress triggers hot flashes, and we've talked about that in
right.
past videos. And so lowering that stress level. And so one thing I noticed when I was reading about you is that you are also a life coach, and you help women pivot during the pause into their next big life thing.
Yeah, which is,
What about
yeah.
that?
Yeah, usually, so it's actually, life into business. Like, so I'm really empowering women to, you want to start a whole new business in this stage of their life. And certainly, that thought alone is stressful, right? Like, I'm pivoting to something that I'm not really familiar with. That I was doing this one thing for years. Now I'm pivoting to something totally new. So that's scary and that's stressful. So I truly, help women to figure out what they need to relieve those stressors. And it really boils down to, going back to the self-care, really pouring into themselves just on a daily basis, as opposed to like, every once or twice a week or twice a month or whatever, but really being intentional about pouring into themselves so they can fill up their cups till they're actually overflowing, so they can relieve their stress, so they can have more energy to pour into their next thing, whether it's their business or whatever their passions are at this season of their life. So I really, focus on doing the things they need to do to relieve stress, whether it's, meditation, yoga is definitely a big one that I like to do also. And just even like taking deep breaths, throughout the day, right? Like, just take a breath for 5 minutes and just breathe, because we are so, especially as when we are so into like going nonstop until the end of the day when we're exhausted and like, where did the time go? So really just taking those moments just to take a deep breath sometimes definitely helps.
Absolutely. And we think about the stress of starting something new, but we really don't often consider the stress of what we're doing right now.
Yes.
Where we're feeling unfulfilled, where we're feeling tired all the time.
Yes.
We don't really like what we're doing. We don't like where we are. We want something different, but we don't really know how to get it. But we're unhappy. We're unhappy with what we have. And so it's a lot less stressful to go for what you really want than to continue in a pattern of unfulfillment.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of people don't think about that. And I heard it put this way by Dr. Henry Cloud in his book, 9 Things You Must Do to Succeed in Life and Love. He says, do you plan to be alive in the next 5 years? And I'm like, yeah, I do, unless I get hit by the MARTA bus
right
across the street downtown Atlanta. But he said, well, then that 5 years is going to pass no matter what you're doing. So you might as well be doing something you love instead of something you hate.
Yes.
And that just resonated with me. So, I'm going to be putting Dr. JoyEl's information in the description bar. So make sure you click down there. And if you need a life coach, if you need someone to help you pause and pivot at the same time, definitely go to her website. She has excellent information. She can help you with nutrition. She can help you with deciding what it is that you want for this next phase of your life. So I just wanted to put that out there because that's a big deal. Stress management and deciding what you want. And then certainly, that self-care aspect is a big deal. And sleep is a huge part of self-care. And a lot of times people don't know that they're not getting enough sleep. And of course, menopause can affect sleep. So how are you coaching folks on sleep when they're going through perimenopause and menopause? Because we know night sweats are definitely a thing, and sometimes just the hormonal imbalance can cause some insomnia.
Right. That's true. And that, like I said, is definitely very common. And it also, goes back to what we were talking about before, what we're eating and how we're exercising. So that, when we're putting good things in our bodies, when we're exercising and moving our bodies and getting those endorphins going, that actually helps us sleep. So that contributes, to us being able to sleep better. As far as, stress management, we have so many things on our plate. And when we start to declutter and start to unload things, is what I coach my clients to do. Start unloading things that don't serve you well. Because when you start doing that, that also helps you to sleep better, right? So that also is definitely important. And then, we also just talk about just the environment ourselves, where we sleep. Like we're sleeping in an environment where, we have the TV going, we got the phone next to the bed, like all these things that are distracting. So eliminating things that can distract us while we're trying to go to sleep is also important. Just having just a healthier sleep routine, before you go to bed, whether you do something that's relaxing, whether it's put on the diffuser, smell some lavender going, things like that, just to kind of help relax us as we're going to sleep. I think that definitely helps. And also journaling, like getting all those things that's going on in your head, like a brain dump, letting go of those type of things before we go to sleep is also very important, is what I talk about with my clients.
Yes, I think that is so important. And then, if you're someone experiencing a lot of night sweats, maybe getting your fan going.
Yes, that too. Right.
Get your little negligee on. Like, don't get in your flannel pajamas. That's probably not the best.
Yes. Yeah, I learned that personally. Like, I couldn't wear my cute silk pajamas anymore. The flannel was that was a big no. But I definitely had to. I have kids, so I couldn't go to sleep I'm totally naked, unfortunately. But I was almost there. Trying to stay cool.
Cool cotton is the way to go. So I think that's also huge deal. So we talked about food, movement, stress management, and sleep, and those are 4 very, very important things that can certainly help with perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms. And many women, that's really all they need, right?
Yeah.
Let's say though that I'm doing those things and I'm still having a significant problem with menopausal symptoms, be it hot flashes or vaginal dryness and painful sex, or just brain fog. That's another thing that women talk about a lot. It's I just feel like I've lost so much of my mental capacity, to remember things, or even to remember words and speak, do presentations and things that I had to do before. So what do you do when we're doing everything we could be doing on our own and controlling for those factors? What's our next step?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our next step is we talk about different options in regards to maybe prescriptions that we can talk about in regards to, and also depends on, like you said, what type of symptoms they're actually having, whether it's brain fog and night sweats, hot flashes, those type of things. And there's so many, there's hormonal treatment, like hormone replacement therapy, and then there's non-hormonal treatment that we can kind of, dive into to figure out what that woman needs. And I really start with, okay, you've tried these lifestyle changes and you're still, not happy, you're miserable or whatever, depending on the symptom. But really, talk with that person, that woman, to say, okay, so what do you feel comfortable with? Because there's some women who are hormone replacement therapy, oh my God, I want to stay totally away from that, versus some women who are open to it. So I really start with that question first to see where they are, and then figure out which direction to go to with, whether it's hormonal versus non-hormonal in regards to the symptoms that she's having. So it really kind of depends.
Okay. And I think that really is, I think it should be tailored to each woman. I mean, I feel like it's an individual type of therapy.
Right.
And so if, let's say, for instance, I am someone who's interested in non-hormonal therapy, who's having really intense hot flashes, and vaginal dryness, because those are probably the top 2 complaints that we get, right?
Right.
Come in. So then what would we do? What would you recommend? And I'm asking for myself, not for a friend, because like I said, I'm always looking for the best options for my patients too, because
right.
We're always, menopause is something that's almost the next frontier, like space, because it's just now really being deeply studied and people are getting really interested in it.
Yes.
But for a long time, there weren't a whole lot of options out there.
No.
There wasn't a lot of education given about it to physicians and healthcare providers. So, I'm always looking for the next best, hottest, latest, greatest thing. So I know so.
Right. Right. So if we're talking about non-hormonal, as far as, if someone who has hot flashes and vaginal dryness, I would probably start with so the thing with, those two can certainly, be separate in regards to the actual treatment that I usually will recommend. So the hot flashes portions, for non-hormonal options, I would recommend Brisdale, which essentially is a low dose Paxil, or basically a low dose medication that's used for depression, but very low dose. But it has been FDA approved for hot flashes. So I probably would start there. And then for the vaginal dryness, there are options for vaginal dryness that's not hormonal. And those, certainly can be things over the counter, like Luvina is a vaginal moisturizer. There's also Uberlube that actually used during intercourse. And then as something that someone can use on a long-term basis, Reverie is a favorite of mine, which essentially is a vaginal suppository that you can pop in the vagina every 2 or 3 days. And it's hyaluronic acid, which is very hydrating. They actually use that in skincare products. But it has been shown to be very helpful for women who have vaginal dryness, and basically use that on a long-term basis as far as the vaginal dryness. And those are kind of probably the top things that I would recommend for someone with hot flashes and vaginal dryness.
And see, I just learned something new. I had never heard of 2 of those products that you just
mentioned. Really? Oh, okay.
Fantastic. So I can take that back. All right. Okay, go ahead. You were saying one more thing. Go ahead.
No, I was going to, if you want to switch over to hormonal, then we can switch.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's do it. So next, okay, what if I was open to hormones?
Right. So if you were open to hormones, there are multiple options in regard to what we call hormone replacement therapy. And also, ask the woman, or if she's been my patient, or has not been, as far as her status, as far as if she has a uterus or not. Because if you still have a uterus, you need estrogen and progesterone for your treatment, because the progesterone helps protect the uterus from any type of cancers that can arise if you use this estrogen by itself. If you don't have a uterus, you can just use estrogen and you will be okay, because there's no risk of the uterus being compromised with just the estrogen by itself. So there are multiple avenues we can go with hormone replacement therapy, as far as there's pills, there's patches, there's creams, there's sprays, there's all kinds of things that's out there, especially to help with hot flashes. And like I said, I kind of figure out, I personally like to give patches, because they potentially can have less of risk in regards to developing blood clotting disorders or cardiovascular disease, things like that, as opposed to someone taking a pill. Again, I asked the woman what she feels more comfortable with. Some people may feel comfortable with a pill as opposed to a patch or a cream. So also that's very individualized also. And then as far as going into the vaginal dryness portion, there's also vaginal estrogen that's very helpful in regards to vaginal dryness, that women can use in a cream, in a pill, as well as a ring that they can place in the vaginas that actually can help with their vaginal dryness. So there are definitely more things out there than they had before, that are options for women. There's also now I'm blanking, the other vaginal tablet or suppository that I've recommended for vaginal dryness and pain with intercourse, and I'm blanking on it right now.
The Interosa?
Yes. Interosa definitely had good benefits with that also.
Okay, yeah. I have used that before. I pretty much heard of all of those, so that's good. So that means I've been paying attention to those. I'm using the patch, so I feel good about that. Yes. So I'm keeping tight. I mean, I wish that we were a little bit more standardized in our treatment plans across the board, because I feel like sometimes women don't get the best options at every place they go, because we don't have a good standardization of care when it comes to perimenopause and menopause.
Right.
So I'm always looking to learn, because I think, we should try to do the best for every woman every time. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, there, you mentioned that some women were open to hormones, some women were absolutely against hormones. And I think that a lot of that has to do with this big discussion that people have been having about this Women's Health Initiative study that came out years ago. Mm-hmm. And then some of the fallout from that.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Like, what are your personal thoughts on the safety of hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah.
And, is it... And for some patients, it's just not safe based on their personal or family medical history.
Right.
But for the people who are appropriate candidates for it, what do you feel about it? What do you think about the safety of it?
Yeah, I actually think it is safe for women to take hormone replacement. Like I say, if they're good candidates for it, they don't have any risk factors, they don't have family history, things like that. If they are open to it, and like I said, they've tried the natural stuff and that's really not helping them like they would like. So hormone replacement therapy is definitely something that I do recommend as another step in regards to helping with their symptoms. So yeah, the WHI study came out. It was first the best thing since sliced bread, and then it was like, oh God, don't take it. It's gonna, harm everybody. But now we're back in a place where, kind of looking back over the studies, it showed that the risk in regards to hormone replacement therapy, in regards to risk of cardiovascular disease, risk of breast cancer, things like that, those risks increase when women start taking these hormones later on in life or later on in their menopause transition. So they basically say that it's better if you're going to take hormones, better to take it early on in your transition as opposed to way past when you actually started. And then if you are also going to take it, typically I would particularly recommend you can stay on it for 10 years, because then the studies have shown if you're on it for more than 10 years, that's when the risk potentially can increase for those things. So it's more of a timing thing. So I usually don't recommend, going on hormones if you're 60 and, because you're typically at that point already menopausal, or you're postmenopausal at that point. So usually if someone's early on in their transition, I think it's totally, and if they're good candidates, I think it's totally safe for them to take hormones and up to, like I said, a 10-year mark. And then even the 10-year mark, I've had patients, women on their hormones in their 80s. And I'm like, you're not taking that away. You're not taking it away.
Exactly. I have a few patients that we have a conversation about it.
Right.
And we have a very serious conversation about it. And I say, we learned via the Women's Health Initiative that women over 65 who were taking the, hormone replacement therapy were at risk for these complications. And I have had women look me dead in my eyes, say, I would rather die of a stroke than you take my estrogen from me. And I will sign anything you want me to sign, but do not take my... And we have literally just had an informed consent process.
Exactly.
And they want their hormones. They want their hormones. Not care.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, okay, girl, okay. Because I don't want you to hurt me up in here.
Right. Right.
And if they don't have a contraindication to that, like active heart disease or
exactly
high blood pressure, where I'm not going to do something.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But if they're okay and they're otherwise healthy, okay.
Exactly. Right. You give them the risk and they are aware of the risk, then if they want to continue to take it, I'm certainly have one to be like, okay, that's fine. Yes. We've had this conversation year after year.
Back away slowly, okay? So, I think that it's something that is definitely individualized, but I do want to, communicate to women the stance of the medical community that if you are a safe candidate for hormone replacement therapy, you are safe to take that. You should not deny yourself that if you're having significant symptoms, that diet, exercise, stress, and sleep management is not helping. Right. So if you feel that you need something to help you and you're not being helped by natural methods or non-hormonal methods, it's safe to use hormone replacement therapy if you need it. And you don't have any reasons why you can't have that. So I think that we need to put that message out there, because there are a lot of people who are deathly afraid of it because they think they're going to get breast cancer. They think some other badness is going to happen to them. It has not been proven. And like you said, Dr. JoyEl, they're saying you really need to do it around the time of menopause. And, around 10 years, you need to be weaning off unless you have some reason why you absolutely have to stay on it.
Right.
And we need to have a plan for that. So what age are you usually weaning your patients off if they will agree to come off?
Right. Yeah, it varies. But I would say probably on average around the age of, 55-ish, around that. And again, it really depends on the person, but I would probably say, in that age range between 50 and 55. And it really also depends on, the amount of their symptoms, how they're feeling. And we certainly do a trial, right? Like we just don't totally okay, it stops here and that's it. So we do a trial, for a few months, see how they're feeling, and then, just kind of take it from there. So that's usually around 55 or so, maybe a little bit after that, a little bit before. So it really kind of depends on the person.
And so when we're talking about hormone replacement therapy, Dr. JoyEl, a question that comes up almost inevitably is about bioidentical hormones, about hormone level monitoring, and that sort of stuff. What are you doing with that in your practice? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. Thank you for that question. Yes, it's a very common question, right? And I had multiple women come into the office so can you check my hormones? And I'm like, no. No, it's not going to help me, right? So what I feel about as far as, checking hormones and the saliva tests and things like that, I usually tell my patients and women just in general that me checking your hormones is not going to give me the information that I really want. I truly go by what you are feeling and what you are experiencing, because we can check these hormones and your hormones are normal, but you still out here sweating and miserable. So right. What's me checking your hormones doing for me? Nothing. So I truly go by, where they are as far as their age and what they're experiencing, and figure out the only hormone that I may check is the thyroid, because the thyroid can mimic perimenopause. So I may check the thyroid hormone, but just in general, checking estrogen and progesterone and all these other different hormones, I personally feel like it's not helpful, because, like I said, there are women who can be experiencing all kinds of things as far as menopausal symptoms and can still have normal levels, because our hormone levels, they fluctuate from day to day. So if me checking it today, it'll be normal, maybe abnormal tomorrow, or maybe normal tomorrow too. I won't know that. But the more important thing is to really go by what you're feeling. So I can judge, that and give you whether it's lifestyle changes versus a prescription, judge by those things. If you're getting better, then we go by that. We don't keep, chasing our tails about the hormone is this today and now is this tomorrow. I personally don't feel it's necessary. Bioidentical hormones definitely comes up. Is it better? Is it safe? There's different kinds of bioidentical hormones, right? What people think about it. That's what I mean in regards to, is it the compounding form of bioidenticals versus a bioidentical hormone? So bioidentical essentially means that the hormone itself is very similar to the hormones that we naturally produce. Right. So having a bioidentical estradiol, which can come in a pill or a cream, as well as a bioidentical progesterone. But there's also these compounding, formulations that compound pharmacists make. That's also what they, consider bioidentical. The problem that I see with the compounding options is that sometimes there are other things that's put in it that we don't know. So I personally feel sometimes women have to be careful with the compounding formulations in regards to bioidenticals, only because it's not FDA approved or, basically screened in regards to other ingredients that may be in it that also can essentially exacerbate their symptoms. So I usually, encourage women to, take a second look. I don't say avoid it altogether, but sort of take that into consideration when you're considering bioidenticals just in general. But there's definitely prescriptions that are FDA approved that are also bioidentical, that are out there. There's also options for women that I feel that it's, is that's safe. Is it better than, a synthetic hormone? I don't particularly feel that it's better, but I do feel that it may be better tolerated because it's very similar to your hormones. So I do prefer to give bioidentical prescriptions as opposed to a synthetic one. But not to say that I haven't given synthetics and women have done fine. So also very individualized too. We may have to kind of play around with a couple of things to kind of figure out what's the best fit for them.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I feel good again because I'm like, okay, that's what I do. I'm like playing match, like, okay, what she does. Okay, so I think I absolutely agree with that. Can you comment on testosterone? I have patients sometimes that come in and say, I think I need more testosterone because maybe my libido is low, or I just feel like my energy is really low, and they've been reading things, and Dr. Google has gotten to them. And so, we talk about it, and sometimes women do have really low testosterone levels, but, the literature on it is really kind of iffy in terms of the research out there. So right. What are you doing with testosterone?
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, I've had women who have low testosterone levels, but they feel totally fine.
Right.
So yeah, I have not personally prescribed testosterone, and I know women also, the testosterone pellets some women are very big fans of, and some doctors are very big fans of, which, everybody's different, right? So as far as the testosterone pellets or just pellets in general, I'm kind of queasy about, only because when we put these pellets in, you can't take them out. You have to basically wait for your body to absorb them. And that can, take a few months. And then if you having side effects, and you just have to, wait it out and just kind of, so I'm not a big fan of the testosterone pellets or just the pellets in general, just because, it's really, you can't stop it like you can stop a pill or cream and things like that. So I, going by the testosterone in regards to, treatment, again, looking at the person as a whole, what else is going on in their life, especially with energy. Yes, your testosterone is low. Vitamin D can also be low. Other things that's going on in her life that's draining her and causing her stress, things like that. That can also make her libido, go to zilch. So there's different things that we have to look at besides just looking at the actual testosterone level, is what I feel. So I am not, a big fan of like giving testosterone prescriptions and pellets and all that type of thing, because I feel like there's certainly some space for it at times, but I think overall, just in my experience, there's other things that we can do to potentially kind of address what she's experiencing.
Right. And then if you think about it, just from a biologic standpoint, the reason that women have lower risk of heart disease, or heart disease that's lower than a man's risk, is because our testosterone is lower. So I always think about that, and I'm like, I start just giving her a bunch of testosterone. Theoretically, does that not raise her risk of heart disease? So I'm
right.
Very cautious about that. So I thank you for your thoughts on that. I think that's definitely the way to do it. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about is, in terms of your book, I wanted you to talk a little bit about what that process was like, writing that book, and just kind of what you were wanting to get out there to the ladies, loving me, myself, and her through perimenopause and beyond. Like, what were you wanting to say to us in that book? I think it's kind of like maybe a love letter to us. What were you saying?
Yeah, so it was honestly a love letter to myself, to other women too, right? So my journey started at the age of 39, where I started to get night sweats, mood swings, like all the things. And I really did not like myself. I didn't love myself. So I really had to learn how to, learn to love myself again and learn to like myself again in this season of my life. And I realized through seeing patients over and over again in the office, like women are struggling. They are struggling. They are miserable, and nobody's talking about it. Right. So I really wanted to, get the message out, like, you are not alone. And this is a process that we all go through. This is what God designed us to do, and it is okay, and you will be okay. So I really wanted to, because I have affirmation in the book also. So I really wanted to just encourage women in this season of life. This does not have to be like you have to be miserable. So I really wanted to be educational, empowering, affirming that they are okay. And then just a tidbit, it's loving me, myself, and her. The her part is the vagina, because that's the organ that we we ignore her until something wrong with her. So I also wanted to encourage women to make sure your vaginal health is, optimized too through this process, because we don't want to let her kind of, go astray and then we're, miserable because of that.
Absolutely. That is such an important message. Love yourself, love your sister, and love your vagina.
Right.
What else could you say? Dr. JoyEl, thank you so much for educating us today about how we can harness the power of the pause.
Yes.
It was such a great discussion. I hope that we'll be able to invite you back and have you come and see us again sometime on Delivering Joy MD TV. And Girl Gang, make sure you check out her book, Loving Me, Myself, and Her Through Perimenopause and Beyond. And make sure you tune into her podcast, Midlife-ish, Slay Menopause Through Mindful Living. Thank you again, Dr. JoyEl. And Girl Gang, make sure you put your questions and comments below, and we'll do our best to respond to you. We want to engage with you on this topic. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single Well Woman Wednesday episode. And we'll catch you next time. Peace.